All right, good evening. We'll begin this meeting of the HRC on September 1st, 2022. Before roll call, I'll just go ahead and make this statement. During this declared state of emergency, this meeting will be conducted in accordance with California Government Code Section 54953E as authorized by resolution of the City Council. Please contact the City Clerk of Mountain View to obtain a copy of the applicable resolution. All members of the Human Relations Commission will participate in the meeting by video conference with no physical meeting location. As noted in the meeting agenda, members of the public may provide oral public comments during the public comment period for any item joining the Zoom webinar. Any emails received by 5 p.m. today were forwarded to the commission. I don't think we had any this time around, and now I will ask the principal management analyst to proceed with roll call.
Commissioner Ball.
I'm here.
Commissioner Noquito, let us know she'd be absent. Commissioner Rakestraw.
Here.
Commissioner Solomon.
Here.
Commissioner Webb.
Here.
Vice Chair Sylvester.
Here.
And Chair Lynn.
Here. Thank you. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next item, which is minutes approval. The minutes for the June 2nd, 2022 regular meeting and the June 22nd and July 26th special meetings have been delivered to the commission members and copies posted on the City Hall bulletin board. Are there any corrections or modifications from the commission? I don't see any, so a motion is in order to approve these minutes. I'll go ahead and make that motion. I don't think we need a second, but if someone wants to second it, oh, we do need a second. Okay, so Vice Chair, oh great, okay, thank you, Vice Chair. So we'll go ahead and do that and take sorry, I've been doing this all year and I can't remember if we need a vote, but okay, we'll go ahead and do a vote.
Commissioner Ball.
Aye.
Commissioner Rakestraw.
Aye.
Commissioner Solomon.
Aye.
Commissioner Webb.
Aye.
Vice Chair Sylvester.
Yes.
And Chair Lynn.
Yes. All right, so we'll move on to the next section, oral communications from the public, although I don't see any attendees. So staff, I'm going to go ahead and skip over this one. Is that okay, or should I read the, or?
I believe we still need to read through
Okay.
the statements. Thank you.
Okay, I will go ahead and do that. This portion of the meeting is reserved for persons wishing to address the commission on any matter not on the agenda. Speakers are allowed to speak on any topic for up to 3 minutes during this session. State law prohibits the commission from acting on any non-agenda items. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide any comment on non-agenda items? If so, please click the raise hand button on Zoom or press *9 on your phone. And I don't see anyone in the attendee box, so I'll speak slowly in case anyone does join, but looks like that's not going to happen right now. So we will go ahead and move on to the next item of unfinished business. We'll hear from some of the subcommittees and some of the items that occurred during the summer session. So first I'll start with the Color of Law Subcommittee, which will present an oral update, and no action will be taken on this item at this time. Vice Chair Sylvester and Commissioners Solomon and Webb, would one of you like to start us off?
Well, we have a tradition of me being voluntold, so I'm just going to jump in this time. Excuse me, my voice is shot. Well, first of all, I'm going to keep this super short, but I want to send out a thank you to all the commissioners who were able to attend our event and to city staff, Christina and Laurel, and a lot of other people. If I did my thank yous, they would start playing the walk-off music. It took a village. It took a lot of villages, actually. So in terms of the event, some of the highlights, we had over 100 people in attendance. We may have had more if parking had not been an issue. I've had a few people tell me they left because they couldn't park. So something to think about in terms of that venue going forward. But with that said, everything else I have to say is super positive. Everything about the event seemed really, really well received. All of the different, we had a lot of physical areas where people could go and see like a historical timeline, and then a wall of quotes, and then some interactive areas where people could write some of their own feelings and thoughts. All of those areas were extremely popular and well attended. We had people stickying the timeline if something resonated with them, and it was very, very, very colorful. So we had tons of engagement the entire time. Michael Kahn's presentation from the guy from Stanford was really, really good, really well received. A lot of questions at Q&A from that. And then we did the breakout groups. And I know a lot of people say, well, I don't really like breakout groups. That's the part of the event where I leave. It felt like the opposite. Not a single person got up during the, as far as I could tell, before the breakouts were announced, and during the breakouts, people stayed until the very, very end. I've heard a lot of great conversations in my time, but these were some of the most raucous, engaged, give and take, back and forth, excited, interesting ideas flying that I've ever seen in any event. And people thanked us all profusely for providing a chance to get together physically, a chance to talk about really important issues in a nicely facilitated way at a really beautiful space. To this day, when I see people in public, people thank me and talk about this event. So people are still talking and still thinking about what it means. For those of you who don't know, I probably should throw this in the chat. We have a website where a lot of the materials we had, copy of the presentation, a video recording of the presentation, the timeline, some other stuff, and hopefully a few other things going forward can be put up there too. That's mountainview.gov/history of housing. So people are really enjoying taking a look at that site. With that said, I did have one question for staff. We told people we would take the unanswered questions, the ones we couldn't answer, and then provide answers for them later. And someone asked me specifically if they can get an answer to their question without telling me what their question was. But are we ever going to be able to provide that?
Yes, staff is still working on compiling the answers to those questions, and that's in progress.
Awesome. I told a couple of people, we've had, some staff. It's been really busy. It's been summer. There were a lot of questions. So great. I'll keep saying that. Just be patient. And I've been pointing people to the website and told them to look for updates. So again, thank you, everybody. It was a wonderful event, resonating in the community really, really well. Something we should all feel super proud about. I think it was the biggest HRC event ever, as far as any of us know. So bravo to all of us. If anyone has any questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, I'm done. I see no questions.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Solomon, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for that summary, Vice Chair. And it was really, I will say for me, it was really exciting to be able to be at the event after lots of planning, and the fact that we were able to come together in person, I think was kind of moving for a lot of people to be able to really physically be in community as opposed to just being virtually in community. I did want to comment on some follow-up steps and and a few other follow-up points. I did notice that we had, I believe it was 26 surveys that people completed afterward and that were submitted. So those, I looked over the comments on those, and they're consistent with what Vice Chair Sylvester said and the kind of response that she's gotten running into people. Those who submitted the surveys rated various aspects of the event very highly and seemed and provided thanks for our putting the event on. It seems as though there was, this was clear both at the event and in the surveys, interest in more opportunities for discussion about housing at future events. Certainly not surprising, but just wanted to comment. I just wanted to comment that that came out in the surveys as well. And we are also in the process of making sure that for folks who agreed to participate in interviews, and at least those folks who, excuse me, agreed for their interviews to be archived and made public, that all of the consent forms are in place. And Camila Arteaga, who is a summer research assistant under Michael Kahn, also did some analysis to take a look at, so during the gallery walk where people could look at the timeline posted on the wall, and they could put Post-its indicating what kinds of things they found most interesting or wanted to talk more about. She did some analysis of that information, and I just wanted to share a few of the things that she commented to us. Let's see, that her sense was that people really like to see showings of Mountain View being inclusive, so not just today, but also in its history. Let's see, what else did she say? People seem to really be very interested in the historical roots of racial discrimination in housing. So not just specifically in Mountain View, but kind of how these trends started nationwide. A lot of those topics were addressed in Michael's presentation. So for example, zoning laws and neighborhood covenants as well. And let's see, looking at what else she wrote here, that folks, when they were going through the gallery walk, reacted very strongly to recent years' housing policies and rising housing costs. And, people want to be able to talk through current issues such as the housing element and access to low-income housing. And that was reflected in Post-its that were on the timeline, and also questions from the audience after Michael's presentation. And I think that's tied to what was in the surveys as well that people submitted about, wanting to have more opportunities to talk about current housing issues. And let's see, and Camila also summed up that the sticky notes seem to express strong interest in 3 major areas. So issues that are or recently were controversial questions in city politics, zoning, rent control, affordability. There was also a lot of interest in particular communities that people feel a sense of connection to or support for, Japanese Americans, Native Americans, so the Ohlone people, undocumented immigrants, and also African Americans and the migration to Oakland. And then there was also a lot of interest in local neighborhoods or institutions that people feel a sense of attachment to, so Varsity Park and Mountain View High. And then finally, there were a lot of reactions to the restrictive covenants, perhaps because it was just shocking to people who aren't familiar with those to see, oh my gosh, they're actually still here in some properties in Mountain View. So just wanted to share those. All of that analysis is from Camila, and wanted to share that and thank her for all of the work on this project as well. And I'm not sure if there are any other follow-up steps that anyone from our subcommittee would like to share or reflect on.
I had some questions. I know I sent the subcommittee and staff a couple of emails, addresses of folks, especially from my table at the my breakout group in the event, wondering if we were able to get any more interviews, or other folks were able to contribute to the project after the event.
I never got that email.
Oh no. Okay.
To be honest, I've wondered, I know a couple of people had collected emails, addresses of people who wanted to follow up, but I didn't have a chance to go track all of that down.
Okay.
I did not.
Oh, okay. Sorry, were you, okay, I'll just, so I know it's past August 19th, which was that deadline, so not sure how, I guess maybe that explains why I never got a response to that email. If folks still want to participate or contribute, is there a way to do that, or has that deadline passed?
May I add, I just checked right now and I do see your email here and somehow I missed it and I apologize for missing it. And so it was from August 18th.
Yeah, I sent it right at the deadline, which is maybe why that happened. So,
like I said, I never got it. I would love to see it anyway. If nothing else, I would love to. I don't really know if we can go. We have the energy, the resources to go through and interview people now. Especially, we've lost our research assistant who was cleaning up all our transcripts and da da da. But I would like to reach out to all those people to acknowledge them.
okay, I'm also happy to do that as well, just because I was at, and it potentially could have been my fault for not sending it to the correct email addresses or
I have no idea.
anything. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
Uh-huh.
I have a question.
Yes.
It would have been lovely to have gotten this survey feedback and the notes from the research assistant before this meeting, or just in general, so that we're all informed about what some of the feedback and not just the subcommittee. Is that typical, or is that information available somewhere for the rest of us?
I have the survey data and I'd be happy to share with the rest of the HRC. I believe can't speak much to the past, but my understanding is that typically the work has been done in subcommittees and centered there. But I'm happy to share what we have with all of you.
I know that, so because of Brown Act, those of us on the subcommittee cannot email people or otherwise communicate with people outside the subcommittee, except in the context of the meetings about HRC business, as long as our subcommittee already has 3 people, because we can't have a quorum, we can't communicate with a quorum. So yeah, I just wanted to comment on that. And then for city staff, I'm not privy to what sort of restrictions you have about what you can and can't send out.
Yeah, if I may. So typically what happens when a subcommittee is reporting out after an event, the subcommittee has the choice if it to be an oral update, if there's written materials or a report that the subcommittee is developing, they can create that and share that with the agenda packet. So I believe that this subcommittee decided to do an oral update, but in the future for any subcommittees who are working on a project or an event, and if they want to submit a written write-up to staff to include in the agenda packet for the agenda that item will be reported out, they can certainly do that.
It just seems like really valuable information, and I'm fascinated to take a look at it myself, because it's going to teach me as a commission member, you know, the things I need to be thinking about. And it also gives me an idea of what surveys look like at the end of a meeting, all those kinds of, like, you know, intrinsic value could come out of it that I'd love to see. But I do understand that, you know, we don't want to be overwhelmed with every little piece of data from everyone.
Well,
I think that's actually, it's really useful feedback, and I wasn't aware that we had the option to attach these things to the agendas, because I know the Brown Act just baffles me in the lots of sets of restrictions that it puts on there. So, you know, I know we're about to do the visual reconciliation report out, and we had survey results as well, and it would be lovely to share that document. Is that something that we can do after the fact in some way, or would need to be attached to next meeting's agenda packet, or how would we do that?
Yeah, I would recommend that since you're reporting out at this meeting that the committees coordinate with Laurel, and Laurel can send that information out to the HRC as a whole after the meeting.
I want to thank Jill and also Kevin for that feedback. I do want to point out that a lot of our findings are on that public website already. Not the survey results, because I don't think the general public would be necessarily interested in those. And the thing that we were talking about, the analysis of the stickies, that's all fairly recent. And up until now, all of that information has been stored on our project's Google Drive. So due to Brown Act issues, I think we'd have to figure out how to decouple that. And I don't know exactly. That's where it gets a little messy, but we could probably put that in the next agenda packet. I forgot what the analysis looks like, if it's in Excel or a doc, or we have pictures. I just realized I don't think the photos have made it to the event website or the History of Housing website yet either. So I've got a list of things to talk to staff about afterwards about if we could put photos up and stuff like that. So, and then we could take a look at what form the analysis, that one analysis on the timeline looks like. Julie?
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Oh, Julie, Commissioner Solomon.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to add that I noticed when I was looking at the survey data do have people's names on them. In some cases, people had the choice. So that there's not an expectation of privacy, but at the same time, I definitely would recommend not posting the survey results publicly. But I think as long as there's a Brown Act appropriate way to share the survey findings specifically with the commission, the entire commission, I think that seems to me completely appropriate. I also wanted to go back to the point about interviews. So I think there were four people. On the message from Commissioner Lynn who were potentially interested to be interviewed.
Mm-hmm.
I am going to be away starting Saturday until the 20th. But after I get back, if there were interest in doing more interviews, I would be able to do them after that point. So we can, our subcommittee could have a sidebar. I don't know if that would be helpful or useful or not, but I just wanted to put that out there.
Yeah, I think 3 of the 4 of them are Spanish speaking. So if that's something the subcommittee is open to, would be good to know.
I know one of the people,
Mm-hmm.
and the others, I may know them. I don't recognize the email address.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything we need to, I mean, I think I'm comfortable with that.
I would only caution the commission that one of our agenda topics today is discussing subcommittee assignments for this coming fiscal year, and that having a carryover of a lot of work from a previous fiscal year's project is definitely going to impact our ability to achieve the work plan that was decided on for this year. So it may make sense to figure out a way to wrap up this project. And I know that we do have people who still want to share, but finding a way to not increase too much further the amount of work that needs to be completed to finish this project.
Okay.
Christine.
Yeah. Thanks. Thanks for that. So Commissioner Solomon, maybe that's something to take under consideration. Commissioner Webb, I saw you had your hand up.
Yes, I just wanted to say that taking on these other 4 or more without the assistance of our wonderful intern doing the transcribing, it adds a lot to the plate of whoever's doing it. So think about it that you have to do it from soup to nuts if you plan on doing it without the assistance of anyone else to lean on. As far as the committee members, especially if you're going to do it in Spanish, it's all on you, Commissioner Solomon.
I guess my question is, would we need transcripts for the archiving process? Is that part of it? I've been a little bit unclear about needing transcripts for analysis purposes versus needing transcripts for our archiving process. Like if people want to be interviewed because they want to have their recording archived, do we actually need a transcript?
I'm going to make the argument that we need to be self-consistent on the project. If we have done previous interviews in a certain format, we should do future ones on this project in a similar format. And actually, a lot of us, a couple of us self-transcribed our interviews, but the intern actually cleaned them up and put them in this really beautiful form. And yeah, that's the part I don't, I wouldn't envy anybody doing at this point. So just, I would want to transcribe and have the recordings cleaned up and all of the release forms and all of the other things that go along with those interviews done properly and consistently. So, you know, warning, that's a lot of time.
If I may make a suggestion, I wonder if this discussion would be a good topic for one of the final subcommittee meetings as a wrap up, so that we can work out the details and create a punch list of next steps to try and wrap up the project, clarifying some of these questions.
I thought we did have our wrap-up meeting, but I would certainly be open to having another meeting to discuss all of these little punch list items later.
Okay, and then I'll resend my email just in case, I don't know. Vice Chair Sylvester, if you end up reaching out to them, can you let me know, just because I'm the one who recruited them and I would like to be able to speak to what the decision is, just because, yeah, thank you.
Just as a note though, like Julie won't be around for a couple of weeks, so this is not going to happen quickly, and it probably should happen, if any reaching out goes on, it should happen after we have a final wrap-up meeting of the subcommittee.
Okay, yeah, I wasn't aware that there was another meeting that was going to happen of the subcommittee. Right. So, okay, yeah, thank you for taking that into consideration. Are there any other questions or comments for the subcommittee? Commissioner Webb, go ahead.
I just wanted to add in, whomever did all of the advertising and the community outreach did a fantastic job, because if you go through the surveys, you can see that there wasn't just one group that reached enough people where they came out. So whatever they did, however it happened, we need to see if we can duplicate that for our upcoming events. Yeah, that one, and also next time we bring more stickers. So because we did run out, and people were literally disappointed that they didn't have stickers, because they wanted to put stuff up as well. Yeah, that was it. But overall, it's a great event. It was very informative. There were a lot of ahas. I saw a lot of head shaking. Like they were either surprised, they agreed with it. Yeah, but I was very, very impressed with Michael's speech and how thorough it was, and how he hit the points very, very, very timely. And even where they mixed in the videos, the timing on that was great as well. For not being a professional editor, it looked really good. So yeah, that was it, guys.
I agree. It was a really well done event. It's nice to have a lot of items done in analog that we usually only see online as well. Any other comments, questions from the commission? Okay, and at this time, I will move on to public comment. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. I don't see anything from the public, so I will move on to the next subcommittee update, and that is the Reconciliation Subcommittee, which will now present an oral update. No action will be taken on this item. Commissioners Ball or Webb, would you like to provide an update? Okay, I don't know if that's okay, so looks like
I can do it. Okay.
okay, Commissioner Ball.
Well, we can share. Go ahead, but you go ahead, Commissioner Ball, and start off.
Yeah, so we also had an event that we hosted, which was less widely attended than the Color of Law event, which sounds like it was phenomenally attended. I unfortunately missed it. But we had, I don't remember what the final number was, somewhere on the order of 30 to 40.
Yeah, it's like close to 40, I want to say.
Close to 40 folks show up for the Candidly Speaking hosted event. And generally speaking, I think it went very well. And we have some survey responses as well that we can share that seem to indicate that. I wish that we had known about sharing the actual survey. Actually, can I share a screen and just show these? Is that viable, or is that not something we can do here?
I believe since it's in the context of a public meeting, it'd be appropriate or acceptable to do that. Do you have the sharing screen function?
It looks like I do.
Okay.
Let me.
May I just note that if people have named themselves, this recording will be part of a public record and show people's names and their responses.
Yes, this is an aggregated survey result. I was just scanning through. It doesn't have any names in it. So let me see if I can get that. So this was actually the aggregated result that Candidly Speaking collated and shared back to us. And I think I can share it. Can you all see this okay? Cool. So making up for the fact that we did not email this out a little bit. So first off, we had some sort of high level questions of, was this a good use of your time? Did it meet your expectations? Things like that. We had no negative responses, and 25 responses out of roughly 40 attendees, a pretty good percentage of folks responded. So, people seem to have a good time. Unilaterally, everyone said they'd be interested in participating in another such event. We got a wide range of responses about what people liked most about the event, but a lot of things talking about connection and connectedness, which is good. That was our goal of the event. It was titled around connection, and that seemed to come through. People really commented quite a bit about that. There was also, people talking about it being a positive space, a kind space, a chance to hear and connect and share. In terms of what could have made it better, a lot of folks talked about wanting more time and wanting more events like this and having continuity and having longer conversations and kind of being able to keep going with the conversations a little bit more. So there's definitely, we did not end up, I believe, if I'm recalling pre-summer, we did not end up prioritizing doing more of these events on our work plan for this year, but there is definitely interest if there's bandwidth. Or maybe we can work with somebody in the community to host it outside of HRC. Moving on, other questions we asked around, what do folks think the city of Mountain View can do to further foster connection and relationships? There was a lot of requests for more of this, more of the same. So I think that's a good sign. It says that we are actually delivering what we are supposed to be delivering, which is community connection and community events that people value. And then in terms of topics that people might want to see, there was a lot about culture, different cross-cultural things, talking about the Leadership Academy, which also deals with some of that, challenging personal, political, those domains, and general additional comments. Everybody seemed happy. So broadly speaking, the data seems to indicate folks liked it. Experientially, I had a blast. I don't know, Commissioner, a number of the commissioners here were there. Any of you want to share your experiences and impressions?
I'll
Yeah,
chime.
oh, go ahead,
Go ahead.
Commissioner
Go
Webb.
ahead.
That's okay. Go ahead.
There's one thing that was very interesting. Well, besides the chaotic setup piece of it, that was a blast. Well, my niece came with me, who's a college student, and she's an introvert, and she left out of there feeling connected to people that were not her age, that were not her race. Didn't know her story, and she got to share her stories a little bit. And if you, I want to add on to that I showed her the pictures of the housing event, and there was one particular person that was at both of those events that she recognized because she was at her table. And there was some interaction with him. So you say everything was positive. This person at the event, he was not a very positive person. He came like he was the antagonist of the group. But it didn't turn out that bad, right? The work table flipped over, anything like that. It was just, he was just voicing his opinion. So it wasn't just everyone going la di da di da. There were people that actually had strong opinions on the other side as well. So that was a good thing that we would have some people there that we can engage with from the other side of the spectrum. Now, the interesting thing I'm wondering, and staff may know this based on the signups, of who were the repeat people that went to both of the events. That would be something interesting to know. Because what the survey was saying was they want to do more of these, and if they were the ones that actually repeated it, this is something we may want to think about going forward if there's not a work plan for this year, but maybe the year after that. All right.
Thanks, Commissioner Webb. Yeah, I'll just add that I think, again, for both events, that the translators were really amazing. And I think they did a lot of legwork. And I think that having that program grow and seeing it grow over the years has been really great. And I know there have been suggestions to add Russian to that. So yes, that's really helpful. I know Commissioner Say Solomon, I think, is often able to interact with folks who speak Spanish. And I know at one of the events, I was at a table with someone who spoke Mandarin, so I was able to interact with her in a different way. But I think it really helped them feel included when they can interact with like everybody and not just like by coincidence happen to be at a table where some people, or maybe just one person, speaks the language that they're most comfortable in. So yeah, just want to give a shout out to that team, because I think they're so important for these events. Yes, Commissioner Solomon. Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. Sorry. I wanted to add that Russian is generally is available through the city, and I'm not sure if I think there's just one interpreter for Russian, and I think she was perhaps out or away. I'm not sure. I don't know if city staff want to comment, but I've definitely been in events where she's been there, and there's been. It may also be that nobody signed up for Russian, and that was why she wasn't there.
The city staff member, if I may, who does our Russian translation and interpretation as well as community outreach, was in attendance at the Racial Reconciliation Candidly Speaking event, but she did leave after there was no need for Russian translation among the attendees.
And I think for the housing event, I'm not sure if she was away, or maybe no one had expressed a need for Russian, or
unfortunately, I can't speak to that as I wasn't able to attend the event, but I would have to defer to Christina.
Yeah, there was no request for a Russian interpreter. So when we don't have requests for interpreters, we don't utilize them at the events because obviously that is staff time. So, but yes, we translate into 3 languages, Russian, Spanish, and Mandarin. And for the outreach and all the materials, all the materials for both events were translated into all 3 languages.
I just recalled that there was a comment from the interpreter team. I'll just share this here because it may be helpful for future events and subcommittees that are working on events, that they asked about whether they could be involved a little bit earlier on in understanding like how breakout groups would happen, how they would be needed, how they would be used, so that they could also plan farther in advance. You know, to be aware of like, okay, well, you know, here's approximately how many people we expect, how are the groups going to be, do we want to, because they have really good input on like, well, can we have some speakers of, you know, languages A and B in this group and have an interpreter, and how do we do this? So just something to think about for future events. I realize that that does require staff time, so someone from MUP to attend a subcommittee meeting or be involved in some way, but just wanted to put out there that that was a suggestion from them.
Thanks, Commissioner Solomon. All right, are there any other comments or questions from the commission at this time on this topic? I don't see any, so I'll move to public comment. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button on Zoom or press *9 on your phone. I don't see anybody, so we will move to agenda item 6, new business. So the first item here, we'll talk about the subcommittee appointments, and the commission will now discuss those appointments. Action may be taken on this item, and Principal Management Analyst James will provide an oral update.
Thank you, Chair Lynn. At the HRC's June 2nd meeting, the commission selected work plan items to recommend to City Council for the 2022-23 fiscal year. The City Council is scheduled to review and approve advisory body work plans on September 13th, and staff recognizes that the Council may change work plan items. However, we recommend beginning a discussion of possible subcommittee appointments to get a sense of where Commissioners' interests lie and be prepared to convene subcommittees shortly after Council adoption. As a reminder, the work plan items that the Commission identified for the next fiscal year are housing insecurity and being unhoused storytelling, which was carried forward from the fiscal year 21-22 work plan, a bystander intervention training, and a mental health storytelling or civility roundtable. As a reminder, there can be no more than 3 commissioners per subcommittee, but you may serve on multiple committees. And with that, I'll hand it over to you, Chairman, to run the discussion. As a reminder from the previous year, the subcommittees were determined by a straw poll based on commissioners' interests in the 3 different topics, which may suffice this round as well.
Okay. Well, in that case, I mean, how do we, staff maybe, or if anyone has a suggestion, because Commissioner Nalkidu is not present, or I don't know, staff, if she had indicated in any of her correspondence with you before this meeting whether she had any preference on subcommittee assignments.
Thank you, Chairlyn. That's a conscientious reminder. It's my recollection that Commissioner Nalkidu was interested in the mental health storytelling or CRT. At least that was a project that she had advocated for in the process.
Okay, so I think I recall that as well from that. So we'll just assume, I don't know if we're allowed to do it. I'm going to personally assume that she wants to be part of that subcommittee.
We're not going to finalize today anday.
Yeah,
right?
we're not,
for the
but
council, so.
We'll just keep that in mind, that that was under Commissioner Nalkidu's leadership that that subcommittee was created. So let's start with a straw poll. I think that's a good suggestion from staff to just gauge interest. So for now, I think folks can just raise their hand for each of the subcommittees that they're interested in joining, and we'll see how even or not even that might be. Oh no, I see that Laurel had to hop off, or I don't, Christina, I don't know if.
I know she's in the office and we've been experiencing some significant internet access issues, so she may come back on in a moment.
Okay.
But
Well,
I am the host, so but I think we can go ahead and we're recording the meeting and she'll join us when she can.
okay, so let me grab a pen, and so let me start with the first subcommittee of storytelling.
Question.
Yes, yeah.
Potentially, so these subcommittees are to last through the fiscal year, most likely.
Correct.
Yeah.
Unless I am mistaken, roughly half of us have our terms expiring in December. I don't know about my fellow commissioners, but at this point, based on what's going on in my life, I'm not planning to re-up. So I think we should take this into account as we think about these and think about the timelines of these subcommittees and when they're likely to do things, because yeah, I'm unlikely to re-up. Just lots of stuff going on, and I think Julie is termed out. So I don't know, looking at it, I think both Vice Chair Sylvester and Javier also are up. I don't know if you are planning to re-up or not. But
Right. Thank you, Commissioner Ball. Just as a point of information, what has been happened in previous years has been a revisiting of subcommittee assignments in January when new commissioners are installed. And to my knowledge, both Vice Chair Sylvester and Commissioner Webb intend to serve an additional term on the HRC if possible. So we can move forward with, I think you're correct in saying that some of the discussion about timing is important, but just a point of information about what that might look like moving forward.
that's good. Thank you.
Thanks for that, Commissioner Ball. Vice Chair Sylvester, I saw you raise your hand.
Yes, I did want to comment that I plan to reapply, but also in terms of the timing, which is a really good question. Looking at the events, it's hard to say what the timing of any of them could be, but the bystander intervention training had been worked on a little bit before. I don't know if it could get pulled off by January, but just something to think about.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I know you and I worked with Christina a little bit in the last year, so a little bit of groundwork has been done for that. Okay, keeping that in mind, and yeah, no pressure for anyone to say whether or not they plan to reapply for their roles at this point. So I'll go ahead and, just knowing that, if you could raise your hand for the unstably housed storytelling subcommittee. I think that's a lot of it. Yeah. Okay, Commissioner. No pressure, Commissioner Webb. You can, you don't have to feel like you can't put your hand up for something if you actually are interested in it.
Remember, so Commissioners Ball and Solomon are stepping off in December or January.
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
With the reminder that Commissioners Ball and Solomon will step off in January or at the end of December.
Okay, if folks could actually, maybe what's more helpful, because screens are, and like, I don't want to make people hold their hands up for too long. If you could just press like the cartoon raise hand if you're interested in this commission, because now I'm losing track of who had what hand raised.
Sorry,
okay, I
cannot use that function because I'm a host.
Okay, I'll just write your name down then first. So I'm seeing commissioners. Okay, Webb, Solomon, Ball, and I also have my hand raised. Okay, so there are at least 5 of us. Good to know. So if you could, yes, Commissioner Solomon, go ahead.
Thank you. I did want to make a comment that's actually, I think, similar to Commissioner Ball's comment in the chat. So Commissioner Ball commented in the chat, based on that, I would say I should get the last priority for my choices. And I was actually thinking about this before the meeting, and based on what we discussed earlier, I was going to say that if this is just a hypothetical, but if there's some important wrap up that needs to happen on the housing, then, and especially if, you know, somebody who speaks Spanish needs to interview some people or do some transcripts or whatever, that might be a good role for me to do that wrap up instead of taking a slot on a subcommittee that other people who are likely to continue forth on the commission would like to assume. And that way there will be continuity for that subcommittee and at the same time wrap up of other activities, and the timelines would kind of mesh. So
Okay.
just putting that out there as something for consideration.
Thank you, Commissioner Solomon. I know that's a really invaluable skill you have there. My Mandarin is not as good as Commissioner Solomon's Spanish, but I could give it a shot as well in that case.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, Commissioner Rakestraw.
Again, brand new. I have no idea what any of the rules are about subcommittees, how many people can or can't be on them, how many subcommittees we're expected to be on. It'd be nice to have some parameters to understand when we're voting.
Okay. I don't know if staff wants to do that. I can just briefly, and I think Vice Chair Sylvester made some hand signals. So basically there can only be 3 commissioners, so less than a quorum basically on each subcommittee. There's no limit to the number of subcommittees that you can be on. You can be on 0. There's no minimum or max. You can be on 0, and you can be on all of them. We don't have our work plan approved by the city council yet. So these subcommittees are also like TBD. I don't know if there's anything else that's useful for Commissioner Rakestraw right now. Staff, if you could confirm or correct anything that I just said.
That's correct, Chair Lynn, and the work plans will go before council on September 13th if you're interested in doing that meeting.
Actually, one thing that I noticed, and I'm in Oregon, so I don't have my notes from the previous meeting for what the decisions made. When I went to find the ultimate decision of what we came up with, I can't find it written down anywhere. So even right now, you said it, and I'm trying to write it down really fast, what the 3 are, but is that written in, it wasn't in the minutes from that meeting. Where would I find this? Because
it is in the, it's reflected in the June 2nd minutes that were with your packet.
Okay, I'll go back and look, but I didn't see.
Item 5.3.
Okay,
the
I
summary.
will take a look right now. Thanks.
And then just for your reference to, and for everyone's reference, so I have the unstable housing storytelling. I know there was a longer name for that, but that's just what I'm going to call it for now. And then bystander training and a mental health civility roundtable. So those are what we're proposing to City Council in 2 weeks. Commissioner Rakestraw, I see your, I don't know if you, your questions were answered to your satisfaction. Okay, got it. Great. So seeing that, okay, so I'll just, what I wrote down was, so Chair Lynn, Vice Chair Sylvester, Commissioner Webb, Commissioners Solomon and Ball, who are terming out, are interested in this subcommittee, and this is just straw poll. So we'll move on to bystander training. So would folks, again, if you could, save for Vice Chair Sylvester, who cannot do it, if you could press the little cartoon hand if you're interested in this one. bystander training. Okay, so I see Commissioners Webb and Ball for that. And that is it.
I
And
have a cartoon hand.
oh, so if you are in, okay, if you don't have a cartoon hand, feel free to just put your real hand up. Wait, so
question. Do I have to be in the subcommittee to participate in like an event?
you don't have to in order to participate in the event. Those are, my understanding is those are like properly agendized meetings. So you can think of them as these like public meetings that we have, like we're having right now. So all commissioners are invited to attend. And
Right.
sometimes to participate, maybe if like they need like facilitators or something like that. But in terms of decision making and sort of planning for events or things like that, the subcommittee is the one that is.
So only the 3 people.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I'm trained in Clara. I'm trained in intervention and crowds.
Oh, that's awesome. And if that's something that you want to lend your expertise to.
In mental health, and I really don't want to take a space from somebody for the bystander training. So I was trying to understand how I can provide my expertise without taking on the role of 2 committees, which I don't think I can handle. So I just want to clarify that. Okay, but now
yeah,
thank you.
And just to provide a little bit of an update, Vice Chair Sylvester can chime in too, but the work that we did last year was we attended a couple of sort of Mountain View or county sponsored bystander events just to get a sense of like any of the groups that might be out there who could help us facilitate an event like this. I know that Vice Chair Sylvester also like got a little bit of interest from some folks in the county to maybe do a joint event with us. So that's something that might, I'll let Vice Chair Sylvester give those details. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, just a couple of things. I cannot remember the organization that I attended their online meeting. I believe you went to Sherilyn. So we went to a couple of meetings online, and I think we both agreed that the online format wasn't really what would work best for our community. That's why it sort of trickled off, and that's why it's coming back now. For anyone kind of curious about what our thinking was, well, those organizations did in-person training too. And specifically to county support, Supervisor Simidian said he would love to support and co-sponsor or co-host or, to be determined the event. So that's all really good news.
I believe the organization who does conduct bystander training in the area is CAIR, CAIR. And they co-led an event last November that the library department organized for in November. So they would be one of the groups that the subcommittee could reach out to schedule potentially an in-person training if that were to happen sometime in this fall.
Right, and then another group, another nonprofit was Hollaback. So they sort of established themselves during the pandemic, I think, and do a lot of online work. So they've sort of been able to spread that way. So those were 2 that we looked at. Yeah, and so that would be, I mean, certainly, Commissioner Rakestraw, then should I put you down as interested? This is just like to gauge interest.
Interest, yeah. It is a perfect way to do it.
Yeah, this is not like this is just like to get a sense. And we also are like, we're all very good coworkers to each other, and we like to try to get a sense of like, what do other people want to do? I don't want to take away an opportunity. We're all on the same boat with that. So so this is like also an opportunity to just do that. So feel free to.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I would say I'm interested and I have expertise. But if somebody else came along or, it's my second choice, but.
Okay. Thank you. And then Vice Chair Sylvester, I saw you raise a hand, but I don't know if that was to speak or to express interest.
I'm good, thank you.
Okay, so I will not put you down for this one. So moving on to the Mental Health Civility Roundtable, I'm just gonna, a guess, I'm gonna put Commissioner Nakidu down for this one. I'm gonna put Commissioner Rakestraw. Anyone else? Okay, so Vice Chair Sylvester, I will also put you. Good to know, Sylvester. It looks like every potential subcommittee has 3 people who are interested, and then the unstably housed storytelling is oversubscribed with interest, which is also good to know. It might be a reflection too of the community's interests, I think. Staff, is there anything else you'd like from us? Is this, do you think this is enough for us tonight?
Yes, Chairman, this is
information.
this is very helpful in terms of getting the work started and the work plan is approved. So thank you.
Great, yeah, and it's very helpful for me and I think the rest of us to get a sense of who's interested in what. Do you need for the minutes sort of going back to Commissioner Rakestraw's comment about like where can we see that, like would this be recorded in the minutes, like who's interested in what? I'm happy to read off again.
I can read what I've recorded if that's all right,
okay.
And we can confirm.
Yes, great.
For the housing instability and homelessness storytelling, I had Commissioners Webb, Ball, Lynn, and Sylvester, and potentially Commissioner Solomon, who has also offered to work on the housing project instead, wrapping up the current one. For bystander intervention training, I have Commissioners Webb, Ball, and Rakestraw. And then for the mental health civility roundtable or storytelling project, I have Commissioners Rakestraw, Noquido, and Sylvester.
That is also what I have. So if anyone else doesn't have anything to say, we'll go ahead and move on to
we
public.
Can move on to the next item. Apologies, it's not going to be an action item tonight, so we can go on to 6.2.
Okay, I was gonna read the public comment part if that's necessary, but okay, I will not do it. We don't have any attendees right now, so we'll move on to the next item, fiscal year 2022-23 HRC meeting schedule. So tonight, we're going to vote to approve the fiscal year meeting schedule for our commission, and action may be taken on this item. So if the Principal Management Analyst, James, will provide an oral update, thank you.
Thank you, Chair Lynn. This is a routine administrative item. City Council policies require that Council advisory bodies adopt a meeting schedule, and the HRC last adopted a meeting schedule in January 2022 that included meeting dates through June 2022. Today's staff recommends adopting the meeting schedule outlined in the memo you were provided with today's agenda. The HRC's meetings would remain the first Thursday of each month at 6:30 p.m. through June 2023 per that schedule. And this item does need a motion, second, and vote, and public comment.
Yes, Vice Chair Sylvester.
So motioned.
Okay, I will second that.
All right. Commissioner Ball.
Sounds good to me.
Commissioner Rakestraw.
Yes.
Commissioner Solomon.
Yes.
Commissioner Webb.
Yes.
Chair Lynn.
Yes.
Vice Chair Sylvester.
Yes.
Right. Thank you.
Great. And then I will do public comment since it's necessary. Would any member of the public on the line like to provide comment on this item? If so, please click the raise hand button in Zoom or press *9 on your phone. I don't see anyone raising their hand there. So, okay, so I guess this motion passes. All right, so we'll go ahead and move on to commission and staff comments, questions, commission reports. No action will be taken on this on any questions raised by the commission at this time. So are there any, is there anyone on the commission that has any updates for us, any reports? I don't see any. Oh, Commissioner Solomon, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. It's kind of a combination of a question and a comment. And it has to do with the process for selecting new commissioners to replace those of us who will not be continuing after December. And I've been talking to people out. I was at a few community events this summer, talking to people, encouraging people to apply. So there were some questions, you know, like, for example, gee, if I submitted an application in the past, is my application still, you know, is it kept on file and will I be considered, or do I have to submit another application? There was a question about, well, what if my English language skills are limited? Is there interpreting, and kind of how would that work? And there was another point that came up, which was somebody said, oh, gee, I'm interested. And I realized in the comments they made that they were under the assumption that this was a paid position. And when I informed them that it's not a paid position, they said, you know, gosh, I'm sorry, but you know, I have to work 2 jobs, or et cetera, et cetera. And, you know, I just, I can't do something that requires a big time commitment if I'm not being paid because of my financial situation. So it just, that just reminded me, not that I hadn't thought about it in the past, but I kind of hadn't thought about it, frankly, for a while, that it is harder to get a diverse pool of folks, you know, when it's not there's not remuneration. So I'm not saying that that's something that can be changed or etc. But I just wanted to put out there that that issue did come up from somebody who was otherwise quite interested in this work. So just wanted to put out there those comments and thoughts, and see if, and I want to make sure I understand what the process is, so that as I'm talking to other people, and if people ask me questions, I know, like, if they submitted an application before, do they need to resubmit, and what about the language issue? Thank you.
Can I piggyback on that? I'd also like to know how recruitment is. Like, I would love to see us go to graduates of the Spanish language and the Chinese language leadership and encourage them to do this as the next move. Is this something that we as committee members should be out talking about? I mean, I know the city does a pretty good job of saying it's time to apply, but I would love to see us reaching out into areas where we could end up getting a more just new community members.
In response to the questions you have read ahead on the agenda, this is one of my staff comments, is on the 2023 commission applications and appointments process. So to answer some of your questions, applications are not kept over from previous years. Individuals will need to apply for each cycle that they're seeking an appointment. And as we mentioned, there'll be 4 terms ending on the HRC at the close of 2022, with the option for Commissioners Webb, Ball, and Sylvester and Vice Chair Sylvester to renew their terms, and Commissioner Solomon reaching the term limit, as we know. But both individuals seeking to serve on the HRC or any other council body for the first time, and commissioners who are interested in serving another term, either on this body or another body, do have to complete the application, which can be found on the city's website. It's called the Community Services Application, and it needs to be submitted to the city clerk's office no later than 5:00 p.m. on September 29th, 2022. Following that, interviews with the Council Appointments Review Committee will be held in November, and council appointments will be made in early December. And then, according to our newly adopted meeting schedule, the first meeting of the new HRC, including the election of a chair and vice chair, is scheduled for January 5th. At that meeting, we will also revisit subcommittee appointments. It is, being a commissioner on the HRC or on any of the city's council advisory bodies is a volunteer position. And if individuals do need interpretation, that is something that can be arranged through our multicultural engagement program. I will look into whether or not the application is currently available in Spanish, Russian, or Chinese. I'm not able to answer that at this time.
Thank you. May I ask a follow-up question? And maybe this was, I was just going back to the memo that had come around with tonight's materials, because I know some things were in there. When you said that if someone submitted an application in a previous year, they would need to apply again, is that a previous calendar year or a previous fiscal year?
So it would be a previous appointment cycle, which I believe is both calendar year and fiscal year. So we're in fiscal year 22 to 23 and in calendar year 2022. The last appointment cycle was in calendar year 21, fiscal year 21 to 22.
So if someone submitted an application in November of 2021, for example, they have to submit another one, or?
That's correct, yes.
Okay. But if they submitted an application in January of 2022, they will automatically be considered.
That is a question I would need to double check with our city clerk's office on, but I see Christina nodding. And my understanding is that there was no appointments process between then and now.
Yeah, that's correct. There is no appointments process, but if someone submits an application in the same year as an appointment year, so let's say they submitted it in January, the appointments aren't until November, that would be held on and they would be cycled into that appointment process for that calendar year.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Are there any other, that's super important. I know, I think that we're going to have a big shakeup, I think, potentially come January. So yeah, I know a lot of us feel very some urgency with recruitment. So that was really good information for us staff. And I know there are whatever limitations that we have with how we can recruit, but of course, like more and more diverse commission, not just for our commission, but for all commissions, I think would be really optimal, I think, for the city and would serve the city well. So great. Are there any other commissions reports or questions? I think recruitment is like pretty top of mind, I think, for all of us. So it's a reminder I have to get on that as well. Great. In that case, staff, are there any reports for us? Sorry, Laurel, I think you're on mute. Okay,
thank you.
No worries. Yeah.
We had covered the 2023 commission applications and appointments process. And circling back to a question Commissioner Rakestraw had, yes, you are welcome and encouraged to invite other community members to apply. The other staff comment that we have is with regard to virtual meetings in the coming months. And I wanted to hand it over to Assistant to the City Manager Gilmore to give an update on that.
Yes, so currently the City Council continues to adopt a resolution every month that will extend virtual meetings to the following month. So at this time, it is our understanding that the October meeting will be virtual. We are still working through logistically how to conduct meetings in person with hybrid options for members of the public. So at this point, we're still working on the logistics of the technical issues. I believe that we have some supply chain issues with some of the equipment that we have ordered. So that is still something that's in process. And I think it's also important to note that the Brown Act provisions that are state law have been waived because we have been in a COVID state of emergency. And I believe that we are still in a COVID state of emergency. And so the governor at any time can waive that. And so then that would affect the meeting laws. There are several pieces of legislation that are been working through this legislative cycle that may change some of the meeting laws so that when meetings are back in person, it allows people to potentially participate remotely if they are traveling, which that was the prior process. Commissioners who recall who were on the commission prior to COVID, if you were traveling and unable to attend in person, there was an option for you to post on the agenda the location of where you would be participating and posting the agenda for any members of the public to join you at that location. So that is still something, a piece of legislation that is being worked out in the legislature. So I don't have any updates on that, but there has been a consensus that there might need to be some streamlining and updating to the Brown Act to allow people to participate remotely without posting their physical location. So that remains to be seen how that works. But in the meantime, our council does continue to adopt resolutions that allows the continuation of remote meetings for the foreseeable future. And staff will communicate with all of the commissions when that changes and provide enough warning ahead of time and provide direction on how new meeting rules will proceed with the resumption of in-person meetings. But for the time being, is Laurel's understanding and my understanding that the October meeting of the HRC will be remote as well.
Thank you for that update. All right. Looks like we've gotten to the end of commission and staff comments, questions, and reports. So I'll go ahead and adjourn us until our next regular meeting of the HRC, scheduled for October 6, 2022 at 6:30, and just confirmed by staff that that'll also be online. So thank you.